Hi everyone, it's Simon here from Microchannel. Welcome to what we hope is the first of more GP webinars. Of course, depending on what you would like to see going forward. Today though, I'm very excited to bring you a showcase of what I think is one of the most powerful tools in the GP space, hence its name, GP Power Tools. So let me introduce David Musgrave. David has worked with GP for almost 3 decades. Yes, that's right, you heard me, nearly 30 years. And his passion remains unabated. Today, David is going to showcase an extended GP toolkit that he himself designed and wrote. I can tell you, you're not going to believe the functionality this add-on contains. It will breathe new life into your GP system. Next slide. So what does GP Power Tools do? Well, in a nutshell, it extends the native functionality and really takes GP to the next level, including the power to easily develop additional capabilities. In other words, those that don't come as standard out of the box. So make GP do the things you always wished you could. Now, at the end of David's showcase, there will be an opportunity to answer any questions you have along the way. So please feel free to post questions into the questions panel that you should see on your go-to console during the show, and we'll address those questions at the end of David's presentation. Anyway, without further ado, let me introduce David, who's a well-known figure in the GP space. David, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you, and thank you for that great intro.
Excellent.
So we're here to talk a little bit about GP Power Tools, which was originally written as the support debugging tool while I worked at Microsoft. And when I left Microsoft, I was able to get the rights to it and re-release it in 2015. It's available for all versions of GP from version 2010 on, and that includes the modern lifecycle versions that are currently out. The product itself is broken down into 3 main modules, being administrator tools, developer tools, and database tools. There's also a system features module which is required when you get the product. Administrator tools covers all of the features that make GP easier to use, easier to administer, and easier to troubleshoot problems. The developer tools covers anything where you're involved with scripting or triggering, and this is where you can write customizations, replace VBA, and even link to from external products back into GP or from GP out to external products. Database tools is everything that would help the database administrator ensure that your system is running smoothly, including helping you move servers and making sure updates are smooth. The system features cover the ability to capture logs and the ability to capture screenshots, and I'll be demonstrating those shortly. So, and when we say shortly, right now is demo time. So I did have another couple of 100 slides, but most people fall asleep by then, so I thought we'll go straight into some demonstrations. So I'm pulling up customer maintenance. So in a support situation, you are likely to be asked by your consultants of please provide me screenshots of all the windows that you've got open when this problem occurred. So you could have a lot of windows open, and the usual method of capturing screenshots using the snipping tool, you'd have to bring each window to the front, and you'd have to take a snip of it and then put it into a Word or Excel document, and the whole process can take quite a long time. Or if you've got Power Tools, you can just say capture screenshots and send the email, And you can either save them to a file or send an email. I've got it set up to email, and it's just waiting for the email to pop up. There it is. Okay, so this email, not only does it include all of the screenshots as attachments, but it's also including a system summary report, the launch file, the dynamics.set file, and the dex.ini, both the user level and system level dex.inis. And the system summary itself is included in the body of the report, but is also included as an attachment, and it includes everything about the system. So you've got who you're licensed as, what you've got modules, what modules you have registered, who I'm currently logged in as on my Windows machine, my SQL Server version and ODBC versions, information about the databases I'm connected to, details of the runtime engine and settings, what customizations are installed at the customization maintenance level, what DLLs or Visual Studio tools, add-ons installed, what background processes are running, and then I've got a list of every single dictionary installed with its versions, the path that it is using for the application forms and reports dictionaries, and the dictionary assembly DLLs, and whether I can find them. So sometimes you can't, they might not be there. That's not a problem. It just means that you've got no custom forms or reports. So it will come down and it will give you all of the information about what it can find. And then right down the bottom, it will give you a list of what files are attached. So it gives you the technical and display names of the windows and whether they're an original or an alternate version or a modified version of that window. And all of that was produced with a single click. So the other thing then that you might get asked for is logs. So the normal process of capturing a log is going to be that you would exit GP, you'd go and modify the dex.ini file and turn on SQL logging. You go log back into GP and try and replicate what went wrong. But because you've logged out, the chances are that the problem won't reoccur. The other thing is that the dex SQL log is only one of 5 different logs that you can capture. Power Tools will just capture all of them in one go. So if I just come back here, I don't have to exit GP. I don't have to modify any files. If I modify a file, it will affect all users on a terminal server. So this does it without modifying a file. I can just say start logging, do whatever I need to do, and then say stop logging. And I've asked it to send emails. So I'll say yes to an email. And we've now captured the macro, which is the user's actions, the dex log, which is all of the scripts being run and their parameters. The profile is all of the scripts being run, how many times they run and how long they took, as well as all the tables touched and how long they took. This is perfect for finding out where performance problems are. Then I've got the dex SQL log, which is the communication between Dexterity and the SQL database. And then finally, I've got the SQL trace, which is actually what's happening at the SQL database after that communication. So from user action right through to what's happening at the database, I've captured everything. And that was, again, a single click, and it can be emailed. So you'll see that that basically will make the debugging and capturing of issues much, much simpler. So now what we'll do is, one of the issues that we get to see quite a bit is problems where people are confused about what company they're in, particularly if they've got a test company or they've got multiple live companies. So I'm going to log in as another user. And I'll point out here is that I'm using a really long file company name, and you'll notice that the width of this drop-down list is the full width of the window. By default, it's normally about half this length, so it means that I can fit a long name in. I also have the database name, which can be either as a suffix or a prefix showing, and I can also order these companies in whatever order I would like. So I can put my live companies at the top and test and historical companies at the bottom. So that's all GP Power Tools functionality allowing me to control this. So if I log in, Okay, so the first thing you'll see here is I'm being warned that my password is due to expire. So if you've ever had a password expire during a session, you'll know that it causes all kinds of mischief and can disconnect you and cause data damage. So the whole idea is I can get a warning. Normally you wouldn't warn 42 days ahead, but I can get a warning that my password is due to expire, and I can make a change to it at the time then to fix it. So this window here is, again, Power Tools. It's making sure that all of the background processes are completed before I actually get control. So normally when you log into GP, you actually get control before it's finished all of its processing. That does mean that you can go into areas that you shouldn't be able to get, or you can try and get into areas you're not meant to get into. You won't get access, but they will appear on the menus until they're hidden. So that made sure that everything is fully loaded. The other one then is I'm getting a warning here that this is a test company. That is standard GP functionality, but Power Tools makes it very easy to enable and disable it for either a test company or historical company. So I'm going to pop into sales transaction entry, and you'll see now you've hopefully noticed by now the green. So what this is GP Power Tools is color coding my companies, and I have my test company set up to use a lime green, so I can very easily see that I'm in my test company. It also puts the name of the user and company in either ID or name, if you want it in full, at the top of this window. That's very handy because when you come down to look at your sessions, you'll be able to see that this is the David session and that's the SA session. If with the name at the end, you can't actually tell which one's which. So that the idea then is that we will always know what company we're in, and if somebody glances over your shoulder to help you, they'll know what company you're in by the color coding. All right, so another issue is dealing with security problems. So I'm going to say create return here, and I'm getting a security privilege error. So you've possibly seen these errors in GP already, but normally they will finish with the word assistance. The rest of the sentence here telling me exactly what I have got being denied to, with the name of the window and the dictionary it's from, has been added by Power Tools so that I can tell exactly what I have not got access to. But I've also asked the security profiler to open automatically, which then allows me to, I've educated my users to export these out. So I'm just going to export and save that. So, and then they can contact the administrator. So as an administrator, I can come back into SA, I can load up the security profiler, import the 17th. And so I can now see exactly the same errors that the user was seeing. So they've been denied access to create return for the test company for the user David. Okay, so if I then go to security information, I can get to see exactly what is happening. So just make that a little bit wider. Okay, so you can see here that David does not have access in either Fabricam or the test company. The user DynSA does have access, but it's grayed out, which means that it can't be disabled. But that's because they're a power user, same with SA. So how would I give David access? Well, if I expand the system level, this will show me I could make them a power user, which I don't want to do. I could use a super user. So this is a user role that is created by GP Power Tools. The thing with a power user is that it completely bypasses the security model and can't be audited. A super user gives you access to everything, just like a power user, without bypassing the security model. But what I can see is the task, TRX FSRTO1, which can be which is linked to the roles of RT agent and RT manager, will allow me to give David access. So I'm going to use RT agent. I double click on David, come down, find RT agent, enable it, save, and then I can contact David and say try again. So let's go back to being David and open up this window, and I say create return, and this time it works. So that's how easy it is to fix security issues. Now, if the change that you're making would actually cause a difference in the menus, so you would make something appear in the menus, rather than asking David to exit GP and come back in, we can, from the security profile, refresh the menus by saying refresh application navigation, and then that choice will be available. So that's how easy it is to make security changes. Now I'm just going to turn that back off again. Means that next time I do this demo, it works. All right, so the other thing that we can do then with the security information window is if I have a look at, okay, so if I say show resources, I can see all of the resources that make up a task. If I click on a role, it will show me all the resources that make up all of the tasks in that role. And if I click on the user, it'll give me everything that the user has access to. And then once this is loaded, you can then export this using comma or tab delimited, and you can provide it to your auditor, and they can have all the information they want about how someone had got access to Windows or what Windows they have access to. So now, with the security model, we've sometimes come across a situation where you've got two users with the same security, so they have the same tasks and roles, but you need to deny something from one of those users without affecting the other users. So the normal way to do that in GP is to duplicate all of the tasks and roles that gave them access. So let's choose, if we go via menu, and I choose cards and sales and customer maintenance. So I'm now looking at customer maintenance. You can see he's got access via the card 201 task and through the AR clerk and bookkeeper roles. So I would have to duplicate all of those and create a task which doesn't have access, and then create the roles that now refer to this other task, and then change David to use this other task. What it means is that what used to be a nice model for security with tasks and roles starts to become messed up, because you get all of these duplicated tasks and roles and no easy way of telling what's different between the original and the duplicates. So the problem here is that unlike Windows or SQL, which have both a grant layer for security and a deny layer, GP by default only has the grant. This is where Power Tools comes in and gives us the deny layer. So I can come in here and select David, and we can go down to cards and sales, customer, and you can see David currently has access. I'm going to take access away, and you'll see back over here, it now says access has been denied by deny-based security, and David is no longer able to access that window. Now, this works for all the different security objects. So David's also really bad at doing sales returns. So I'm going to come in here and turn off returns. Now, the other feature that the enhanced security window has, other than being able to deny Windows or deny Windows and well, any object from security, it also has the ability to hide windows that can normally not be hidden. So if I show you under Tools Setup, this window Setup Checklists, you cannot deny this from security because it's exempt from the security model. You can deny what it will open, but you can't deny and hide this window itself. But with Power Tools, I can actually say, okay, I don't want to see that, and I've turned it off now, so it will not be visible on the menus. So now, for me to find what has been denied or hidden, I don't want to have to go through this tree, so I can just come here and say, okay, show me a list of what is denied for all users, and you'll see there I've denied customer maintenance in 2 places. Now, just so my demo works, I'm going to delete these, and same thing with the hidden. I can come down here and see what is hidden. Now, these windows, both of them, you can export or print the details, so you can actually have a list of what has been denied or hidden. All right, so I've brought it back to normal. And if we go back to this window on the security information, okay, hold on, we're on the advanced security window here. Go back to security information. I must have closed it, but I would have access to the customer maintenance window now. So go back in here, sales and customer maintenance, and you'll see that access is back to the access, in fact, to the modified version of that window. All right, so basically that makes it a lot easier to maintain your security model. You can grant with the tasks and roles, and then you can fine tune it with the deny-based security. All right, so another point that people are keen to know about is managing your user licenses. So one of the things I can do is I can actually track my user activity, and this will be showing me all of my logins. It shows me the logins as statistics, so I can actually see how many times a user has logged into a particular company and what machine they're coming from. And I can see the last 3 times that they logged in. And also down the end here, you'll see that we've got these auto columns. These refer to the automatic logout, and they give us statistics on the automatic logout functionality, which I'll show you shortly. So this here is statistical information. I also have the option of actually recording every single login and logout. So you can see the logins and logouts that I've done on the system. If I show it for all users, all companies, we'll get a bit more information. So there you can see these are the 2 logins that I've done today. Okay, so that information can be kept for a certain number of days. Now, the other thing that's really useful for understanding your license usage is seeing the maximum number of users on a day. So this, for me, my system doesn't have a large number of users and companies, but you can see when I've had the users logged in, and if you were to click on any of the columns, you would be able to actually see who was logged in at that time. So you normally would get a much more interesting graph on your live system. All right, so by understanding when people are logging in and who's logged in and when and what my maximum number of users are, I can track my activity, but then how do I make sure that I use my licenses efficiently? So this is where we come down to automatic log off, which allows me to log out my users, and I've got a whole load of options here, so I can log them out after a particular time, and I can, using this button here, control which users are affected by this. I also have a first and second optional levels, so I can have specific users with either a shorter or longer timeout. I can also get more aggressive when my user count gets low. So when I'm at less than 10% of licenses available, I can get more aggressive with my logging out. If you want, you can specify working hours and working days, and that will disable the automatic logout functionality during the day, but then it will kick in out of hours and on weekends. Down the bottom here, we've got some really useful features. So this is a smart save feature. So before logging out, it will try to save the transaction that you were currently working on, or whatever window you're currently working on. As long as all the required fields have been filled, it will actually save and close the window before it tries to log out. It will also close inquiry windows automatically. Now, when you log out, it will obviously clear the activity, but you can ask it to remove the activity record regardless, which will make the license available for another user. So even if it fails to log out because somebody is working on a window and they haven't entered the required fields, so I can't save it, I can free up the activity record so that the license is available. That user who's been logged out will be able to finish what they're working on, and then the system will come up and tell them that they've been logged out and they need to exit, and it will remove them from the system, and then they can log back in, assuming there's a license available. So the other thing then that might happen is if you've got lots of companies, you might find that your users start running more than one session, and particularly, so they can have 2 companies open at the same time, which can be quite handy. But if they start going overboard and opening up lots of different companies, you might find that you're running low on licenses because each one of those sessions is using another license. So I do have the ability here to, with the login limits window, to control exactly the maximum number of sessions a user is allowed to get into. I can override that on a per user basis or exempt a user if I want. The other thing you can do with this functionality, and I've set it up on DynSA, is I can reserve a license. So what that means is, even though my license count is 20, 19 are available for general users, but there will always be one available for my DynSA user. So this could be really useful for the CFO or the system admin to make sure that they can always log in even when the system's busy. You also, if you've got more than one company, you can limit the number of companies that, the number of sessions a company can have. So let's say I have a big company and a small company. I can limit my licenses so that my big company will not use all the licenses, and there will always be some available for my smaller company. So that's login limits, allows me to control how my licenses are used. So another thing that you might come across is some sort of error is occurring, and the support team basically are telling you that we need to make sure that there's no third-party products or customizations involved that are causing it, so we can actually identify if it's being caused by something else or if it's Microsoft code causing it. So normally the process is to modify the launch file and remove the products one by one. Now, modifying that file, if you get it wrong, you can cause problems, but also if you're on a terminal server, it will affect other users as well. So with the dictionary control window, you can disable products without necessarily having to change anything. So if I just come back in here and we go back to dictionary control, I can now click on, we'll take smart list. So the lookup window is a alternate window in smart list. So I'm going to disable the triggers, and you'll see that, and apply that. When I open the smart list now, or the lookup now, you'll see that the column names are not filled in correctly and that the window is looking a little bit weird. But it's still opening the alternate version of the window. So I'm going to say, I want you to open the original version of the window. I'm not changing security, I'm overriding security. So this is just now saying, okay, here's the original version of that window. So you can basically disable a product and be able to test whatever issue you're having to see whether it's caused by a particular product. Now, this also has the option here of saying disabled after login, and that will then remember that you want it disabled when you restart GP, so it keeps that for the future sessions. If you do disable after login, you can actually come in and specify which users that will be disabled for, and that can be defined by the users, companies, classes, and also the security records. So I'm going to reset this back to enabled and hit OK. So now we're back to normal. But you can see how that can be used to debug issues. That window also has the ability to disable VBA for a session if you want, and also to disable Visual Studio Tools add-ins. So now another issue that you might come across, and I'm going to open up the resource information window here, and is something happening in the product that you don't understand why. So I'm just going to actually use the option here of raise all windows, which will bring, so that's something that Power Tools adds, which brings my windows back to the foreground. So I'm going to actually reopen the sales window, and again, we'll just raise all windows. Okay, so what you'll notice is with once resource information window is open and I open another window, I can actually see exactly where I am in the product. And you can see as I move tab through, it's showing me what field I'm on. So in this example, we've got our hold field is getting enabled and we don't know why. So I'm going to just say here and open up the resource finder. It's going to tell me what table the hold field is in. So I've now got, I know exactly where I'm going to be able to find this. So I have added some triggers, and I'll just open up here so I can enable them. I've added some triggers which are going to allow me to debug and watch for when that window has been, or when that field has changed. So let me turn these on. So you'll see here, I've got a couple of triggers on customer hold. So basically, this is what Power Tools or Support Debugging Tool was first created for, is identifying when data was changing without people realizing why. It actually solved a support case that had been going for 12 months and without a resolution. And 4 days after it was deployed, it actually identified the line of code that was causing the problem. So if I turn on hold, you'll see I get a dialog saying, hey, you've changed the hold on the window. And when I hit save, it's going to do a few things, but I'm going to get another dialog, and then I'm going to get logs captured and also all the open windows screenshotted. So let's wait for the second email. Now, you don't have to have these emails come to the screen. I've got them coming to the screen for demonstration purposes, but I could have them send automatically. So this is now the screenshots, and that's the same information that we saw when I demonstrated screenshotting earlier. And this here is saying that the trigger has fired, that it's changed, an update statement's changed it from 0 to 1, and it's captured the logs. So I will actually have exactly who changed this or who was running GP at the time, and I'll have the exact line of code, which will be the last line in the deck script, that will tell me exactly where the problem has occurred, and that's emailed to me automatically. So now you can see that I can capture log information, and I can use this to debug non-reproducible problems. You just need to set it up to look for those problems, and it will be able to find them for you. So now, one thing that you might say is, well, running that all the time, okay, let's just close data test, that one, don't need you anymore. Running that all the time might have overhead, because there is an overhead in logging, and that's not anything that, you know, it's minor, but it will have an overhead. So what I can do now is, instead of actually running the logging all the time, I can have it so that the logging is only enabled when that window opens. So if you watch the lights over here, it's showing that logging is currently off. When I open up the customer sales window, you'll see now the logging's turned on, and when I close it again, the logging's turned off. So that way we can actually control when we see the logs, and we actually can say, okay, only capture it for a certain time. So now the other thing that the capabilities here have us doing is, this was using the logging and the developer tools for debugging purposes, but we can also use it for controlling or creating our own customs code. So what I'm going to do is, I've actually got the triggers running at the moment. So if I pop into sales, so this is a self-service script example. So I'm going to pop into sales batches. This was written for a customer, and basically they've said that I can publish it as an example. So this is available on the samples page, where there are lots and lots of different samples of what you can do with Power Tools. But what we've got here is some scripts here that allow me to, for example, move transactions from one batch to another. So I can actually say I want to remove, you know, all of the, let's say, invoices from, okay, SOP invoices, and we'll throw them in, I'll throw them service credits for now. But I can now run this, and it will actually copy those 3 invoices across. You can basically use this to create a script. This is just a bit of SQL code. I can hang it straight off a menu. I can have it ask questions from the user so that we know exactly what you want. And this is just an example of writing a self-service script, so that instead of having to you know, ask your database administrator or your partner to run scripts for you. You can have them set up, ask questions or read data off windows and make them work automatically. So other things that you can do, not just self-service scripts, but we can make customizations to Windows. So this one here, I've got a couple of different customizations running. So we'll show you a few of them. So I'm going to type in Rob and press Tab, and it is giving me a list of all of the customers it can find where Rob exists in any of the fields. You can define which fields to look in, and you can also define which fields to return to the window. So I'm going to choose this one here because it's in Robert Street, and I can now see that that's just pulled it up. So now if I make a change here, so I actually prefer the word street in full, and I hit save. Okay, so if I pull up that one again, I have got customer tracking running, and I can come down here and say display the change history, and you can see that it's actually said, okay, Robert Street or Robert's ST has been changed to Robert Street, and it gives me the date and time and the user who did it. So you can basically, I've got SQL search lookups running for vendors and customers and items, and I've got customer or change tracking running for vendors, customers, and items. So now, if I pull up a inventory item here, this is just another example, and I say take me to the modified. Now, this window that you've been seeing popping up, I can actually control on the fly with Power Tools which version of a window I open. So even though security says to open the original version, I'm going to open the modified version. This could be useful if you have, let's say, project accounting or Winthorp key to act installed. You can then actually say, do I want to open the original version of the window, or do I want the modified or alternate version of a window? And you can on the fly choose it, rather than having one user to log in one way and another user to use a different window. So I can do it without having multiple logins. So I'm going to choose modified. And you'll see here I've added, using modifier, I've added the this web link field. And if I pull up a record, Power Tools code is populating this and also making the link actually work. And I can just have anything I want in here. You can basically use this. It also, the fields can be added onto the report. So if I print the report to the screen, you'll see that the Winthorp address there is there. You'll also notice that the screen does not stay maximized. It actually goes to the size and position that I last had it at. And that's Power Tools remembering the size and state of your screen output window in the same way it can remember where windows are. So if I put item maintenance over there and reopen it, you'll see that it opens where I last had it. So basically, Power Tools allows you to say, I want these windows opened in a particular size, position. So that basically gives you a little bit of an insight of what you can do with the developer tools. So the last piece that I wanted to show you was the database tools, and I'm going to just turn off the triggers. Okay, so the last piece of this puzzle is under the Power Tools, the database tools. We have a great tool called database validation. Okay, now right now I'm actually getting a warning, and this is because I had some products installed that I was using for demos during the conference. So it is telling me that I'm trying to run database validation, but I don't have all of the products or dictionaries installed. So you can see here I'm missing a couple of product dictionaries. That's okay, but that is part of the GP Power Tools product version validation module, and what that allows me to do is make sure that all the products that I have installed are of the same version, so it actually looks for version mismatches. And on some operations in Power Tools, it will warn you if you don't have a product installed. So now, one thing that actually just happened there that I'm just going to show you is this window. Watch how it jumps back onto the screen. So Power Tools will make sure that you cannot have a window open off screen. So that is basically ensuring that if you know, sometimes you'll lose a window off the screen, and particularly note windows or the smart list window on a multi-monitor situation, you can lose off screen. So Power Tools will ensure that that never happens. So right now on this screen, I've got lots of ticks and everything's looking good. So I am actually going to run a script that is going to screw up everything. So that's actually made a big mess of my data. And if I hit redisplay, you'll see that, okay, now I've got some errors here. So this tool, the database validation tool, should be used if you've moved servers. It should be moved before you do upgrades. It should also be used every now and then just to make sure everything's in order. So these options are only enabled if there is a problem. So it's telling me that the Dynasay login at the SQL level is missing. So I'm going to add that back, give it a password. Dynasay is not the owner of the company, so I'll fix that. Dynasay is not created as a user, and Dynasay hasn't got access to all the companies, so it's fix all of that. I have references to a test company in my GP system, but it doesn't exist at the SQL level, so I'm just going to say clean all that up. And then I've got some users that exist in the GP level, but don't exist in SQL. So I'm going to get rid of these test users. I'm just going to clean them out of the system, but I want to keep lesson user. And I'm going to let it automatically generate me a password, and it will send an email, and I'm going to enforce the password policies. It's also going to fix up the company access record, make sure everybody's got access to Dyn Group, make sure they're all on the correct database schema. And so this then will fix all of that. The cup down the bottom here, these grayed out options are not needed right now, but it can also fix security IDs when they are incorrect on non-Dynamics databases. So if one of my users has access to a non-Dynamics database, but the security record is wrong, it will actually fix it as well. And that can be useful for auditing databases or external ISV products for, let's say, for inventory tracking or something. So it has now fixed everything, and there you go, there's my password reset email. So it actually is showing me that lesson user 2 was recreated with that password. And you can also see it shows on this report here. So I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, so you'll see now that everything's under the here is all back in order. If I go to fix utilities, if you've got junk data in the utilities tables, the DB upgrade and DU20 tables, when you do upgrades, it causes problems. So products that don't exist or databases that don't exist. So this allows me just to clean all of those up. Okay, the other issue that we're looking for here is problems with the account framework. And you can see it shows me what the maximum and the used frameworks are. But there's a problem here where the data in the Dynamics system tables does not match the application or the other companies. So this will actually just fix that. Now you can, rather than fixing what's in the system tables, you can actually say update the application by synchronizing it. And then when I check all my tables, it will actually allow me to, it will show me that the tables don't match now the definition, and it will actually allow me to change my account framework. And I can actually, yeah, it's basically a side effect of the way that this works is that you can look at the account framework and make a change to it. Now, the fixed tables area will be blank. I've just run the process feature, which allows it to look at all of the dictionaries installed and all the tables, and it has found all of the tables that exist in Dexterity and in SQL. So these tables here exist in both the product and in the database. So I do have a list of some missing tables, and these ones, in fact, here I had SmartView installed at one stage, so these are some SmartView tables that exist in my database that the product is no longer installed. There's also an exemption list, so these are products that are exempt, or tables that are exempt that we know either exist in one area or the other area and don't need to worry about. So what I can do now is I can actually validate that all the tables I found in the dexterity system and SQL actually match. So I'm looking at the dexterity table definitions, looking at the SQL definition, and I'm looking for differences. So this is one of the main reasons that upgrades will fail is if a table is not in the correct format before the upgrade starts. So this will actually fix, or at least identify the issues. It does give me a report, but I'm not going to worry about it. So I can just look here on screen. So all these tables here are correct. This one's an incorrect duplicate, which means it found more than one definition for this table. Well, one of them was correct and the other one's wrong. So it says, okay, the correct one's good, and this is classified as an incorrect duplicate. But it has found some problems with these tables. So if I look here and say, show me the errors, you'll see dexterity says it should be 79 characters, but the form as actually in SQL has got 99. Being bigger is probably not as much of an issue as being smaller. If you have it smaller, when it's saved, any other characters at the end get truncated. So these tables have got problems. So if I pop into fixed tables, this will allow me, now if they're empty, I can just drop them and recreate them. If they have got data, I can back up, drop, recreate, and restore. I'm also getting a list of the empty tables from products that are no longer installed. So these are all the SmartView tables that have got no data in them, that it's actually saying you can delete them if you want. And the other thing it's picked up is that some of the tables or procedures don't have dyn group assigned, so it's going to fix all of that. So I'm not going to worry about actually fixing these tables right now, so that they're there for my next demo. But that will run, and then when this is finished and you exit, it gives you a list of everything that it actually has done. So you can see everything that is there. Now, the final bit then is under SQL login maintenance. You can use this to reset logins and change the SQL Server options. So you can do this for multiple users at the same time, which is very, very handy if you need to reset passwords.